everyone, welcome back to Healthy with Nicole. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the benefits of coffee and how to drink coffee right so that you don't get any negative effects. Well, I will tell you my coffee story, and for a lot of people, I know they share the same experience of coffee giving you the jitters, and some people just cannot seem to handle coffee. But there's a reason why, and lots of reasons actually, why you might want to try to train yourself to drink coffee the right way so that you can get all the benefits of coffee. So there are a lot of benefits to coffee. I'll talk about those first because getting over the challenges of coffee is actually pretty easy. But first, let's talk about why you would want to even drink it in the first place, especially for people who have sensitive stomachs. I think it actually can be really helpful. And couple reasons are, first of all, coffee when done right is actually excellent for your liver. It really helps to keep the liver functioning, especially when you put sugar in it, believe it or not. But it helps the liver to function, and its biggest job is to clean the blood. And one of the things that I think that we are all having issues with is the toxins in our environment, our food, our water, our drinks, our air, everything we pretty much come into contact with, our skincare, have a lot of toxins in it. And so everything basically makes its way to the liver via the blood. And the liver's job is to break down those chemicals and toxic substances into less harmful chemicals and to basically excrete it through the body. So it's cleaning the blood. And so coffee actually helps to do this. And, I think a lot of people think coffee in itself is a toxin. It's really not. It's a great way to clean the toxins out of your water. In fact, using coffee and brewing coffee filters heavy metals out of your drinking water. So I never really drink much plain water anymore, but if you use water to make your coffee, then it's actually cleaning your water. Another thing that's really important for coffee drinkers is that they have a reduced risk of colon cancer. I think this is probably because they are increasing the liver's function and also increasing bowel movement. So if you're someone who's having a lot of diarrhea, many episodes a day, probably not a good time to start drinking coffee. But if you are stable and not having symptoms, or if you are someone that falls into the constipation side of things, like, IBS has a IBS-D and IBS-C. So if you fall into the C for constipation, I think that actually is a good time to use coffee. Also, there are people with ulcerative colitis that have it in that chronic constipation side. And anytime your bowels get backed up, you are reabsorbing toxins through the colon, and one of them being estrogen. And so the regular bowel movements, even if that means drinking coffee to help you do that, is actually a really good way to keep your estrogen levels down. You want to use it and then lose it. So you don't want to keep absorbing estrogen. And also any other toxins that might be sitting around in your intestines. So it's basically going to increase the transit time and increase bowel movements. So again, if you are someone that's already having a ton of bowel movements, probably don't need to do that. Coffee is also really good to block iron from your food, to block iron absorption. Now, I think there's a lot of people that think, wait, iron is good. Don't I want iron? Well, first of all, if you are anemic because you've had a lot of bleeding and ulcerative colitis and your hemoglobin is low, this is not what I'm talking about. Those people probably, again, aren't going to be drinking coffee because it is going to stimulate bowel movements for most people. When we do it right, it will do that less, but you are probably not going to be in a position to be drinking coffee. But if you're stabilized, yeah, I think, you're going to be using coffee for many purposes, but iron absorption isn't a good thing. We already most of us have iron in our tissues and in our blood. Even if you get your iron levels tested and you're, lower on your iron levels, that's what we're looking at, ferritin. You do probably have it in your tissues. It tends to be kind of held there. So for a lot of people, they don't realize they already have a lot of iron in their body. And so if you're eating a lot of red meat, you're cooking with iron, eat beef liver, some of these things are pretty fashionable right now, that's a good time to have your coffee with those foods because they will block the iron. And you don't want to have a lot of excess iron because there's a combination of when iron actually increases calcification in your body, and it makes for a bad mixture with that and your polyunsaturated fats. I'll put a link below to an article about iron that will give you a little bit more details as to why you wouldn't want to increase iron intake. But also keep in mind, iron is probably our most abundant mineral, and so I don't think anybody's really low in it. It's in pretty much processed foods, it's added to things, and it's in, if you're cooking with iron pan, if you're eating red meat, it's in all of that. So we don't need to continue to add iron. In fact, we want to block it. Drinking coffee is really great for your mood. And I think one reason might be that it reduces the serotonin in the intestines. Again, that goes back to increasing bowel movements, keeping the intestines clean. Yes, it's a stimulant to the intestines, but also we don't want to have serotonin growing in the intestines. That's going to cause some of these, mental health problems that we see. But also you'll see that it's a great lift. Caffeine is actually a good thing if you do it right. And then the last thing, and I think probably most important thing I'm going to mention right now, is the thyroid-like effect of coffee. So for a lot of people, they have sluggish or low thyroid function. This is going to result in poor digestion, slow motility, low energy, cold, things like that. And so you can check your thyroid easily by checking your temperature. It's a pretty good way to measure. And for yourself, coffee can still raise your body temperature because it raises your metabolic rate. And so again, goes back to why it's so important that you drink it in a certain way, because it's such a powerful metabolic stimulant. And it can be good. It can help you lose weight, it can give you lots of energy, it can help with mental focus, or it can be bad. And I'm going to explain that in just a minute. But it does improve your thyroid function, and temporarily it will increase that digestive process and all of that. There's actually a lot of good benefits to caffeine. I think people are afraid of it. I think it's a great thing if you just use it right. So let's talk about how to use it right. A lot of people, their habit is to get up first thing in the morning and make a cup of coffee. That is what I was trying to do for a few years, and man, did I have trouble with that. I would get shaky and I would be kind of anxious feeling all day. I'd sweat and just didn't feel good. I definitely felt it crank up my stress hormones. I can feel that right away. And some of you may feel that too. And the reason is it is such a strong metabolic stimulant that it's kind of like pressing on the gas pedal of your car. And if you don't have any gas in the engine and you're revving the engine, you're going to have problems. So just like with humans, our blood sugar drops and stress hormones rise, right? We already have established that, and that's kind of problems with the low carb diets. But in drinking coffee, wow, some people, they're on low carb diets, they're fasting, and they drink coffee without sugar in it. And then, boy, that sets up a disastrous scenario because the stress hormones rise. We feel it, and a lot of people feel good on it because they feel all that adrenaline makes them energized, and they just, go. And then they crash later because of that. So when you drink coffee on an empty stomach or without sugar, your blood sugar is going to drop even lower because it's going to push whatever glucose is in your bloodstream into the cells. And so now your blood sugar plummets, and that's why you get this adrenaline-like effect. The body has to make glucose if you're not going to provide it. And that takes us back to that gluconeogenesis, where the body says, okay, liver is going to now break down your tissues because we need glucose. And that's what happens. And so stress hormones just keep going up and up, and that's where you feel it. And even if you eat after your food, I personally have noticed that it doesn't work. You're already behind the 8 ball. Your stress hormones are already up. It's really hard to get a handle on it at that point. So super important to put food in your stomach to slow the caffeine absorption and to blunt that effect, and also to get your blood sugar stabilized. Because first thing in the morning, you've been fasting all night, your blood sugar is already going to be a little bit low. Ideally, you get up and you have breakfast, some orange juice, eggs and toast, that's my thing, whatever you want to have. But it should have a combination of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And yes, you need carbohydrates, because if you don't, then again, your blood sugar is going to drop, stress hormones rise, and then that's exasperated by the caffeine effect. So you'll want to make breakfast, take a little time for yourself to have that breakfast, allow your blood sugar to come up to normal, and then have your coffee. And when you do have coffee, I highly recommend putting some sugar in it, or maple syrup, or honey if you're scared of sugar. You shouldn't be, but if you are, any of those will do to basically provide some glucose along with the coffee. And then cream is a great way to also slow the absorption of the caffeine. So you're not blasted all at once. It slows it down between the fat and the food and the glucose. And when you do this, you're gonna notice that your energy from your coffee lasts a lot longer. It's not so extreme, so you're not going to be blasted with these stress hormones. You're actually gonna feel sustained energy. And here's where you're gonna feel all those great benefits of the mood improvement, not anxiety, the great focus that you'll have, and not, the stressed scatterbrain thoughts. So this is how you wanna drink your coffee. Breakfast, then coffee with milk and sugar. And if you want to repeat it later in the day, you can get the same results. Just be careful that if you're someone that metabolizes coffee really slowly, or caffeine really slowly, that you have a cutoff time so it doesn't affect your sleeping. So for me, that's about 1 or 2 o'clock. And before that, I can have whatever coffee I want. As long as I have it in the way that I've described, I don't get any bad effects from it. But I highly recommend that you take a look at your coffee routine if you're doing one, and see if you can try adjusting it and see how you feel. So let me know in the comments below how you take your coffee and how it works for you. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and then I'll see you in the next one.